welcome back to the second half of the greatest show on earth. I'm Christopher Story, your host for Great Adventures in Real Estate, here for the second half of the program. As promised, in just a little bit, you'll have an opportunity to meet the chairman of the Alaska Libertarian Party, Mr. Mark Fish. He's calling in from Big Lake, Alaska. Find out what's important about Agenda 21, the United Nations agenda to take away your private property rights. Why should you care about it? And is it a real conspiracy or is it a conspiracy theory? What's the difference and why do I care so much about it? And why should you? Mark Fish will be here to inform us. On Alaska Matters yesterday, I promised something that I wasn't able to pull off. For those of you that were with me on our program, it's on KGTL AM 620 and FM 100 every Tuesday at 12:30, and we just talk about things that matter to you, matter around Alaska. And I said that I was going to play Jim Rohn, a little piece of Jim Rohn, a business philosopher whom I admire greatly, and didn't have an opportunity to do it yesterday. And I thought, what better way to introduce the Alaska Libertarian Party than let's just have a quick little synopsis here from Jim Rohn, the difference between capitalism and communism.
Profits are better than wages. Capitalism better than communism. Communism said people are too dumb and stupid to know what to do with capital. So you must take capital away from all the dumb, stupid people and give it to the all-wise, all-knowing state. And let the state run everything. I mean, that was communism. And they devastated every country they touched. I've been to East Germany. It's taking $1 trillion just to clean up East Germany. They've already spent $500 billion. They got $500 billion more to go. I mean, every country they touched, and I've been in all of them, they devastated them all with their devastating philosophy. We teach capital belongs in the hands of the people. That's where the ingenuity is to bring goods and services to the marketplace.
I could listen to Jim Rohn all day. Man, he just hits the nail on the head. So I hope that resonates with you as much as it does with me. This section of the program brought to you by the Homer News. Lori Evans, the managing editor, wants to remind you tomorrow there's a collection of all kinds of stuff, from bank robberies, eagles and seals poking their heads above the surface of the water, some cool photographs as always in the Homer News. Oh, there's a new release of environmental assessment. Alaska troopers have charged a man with driving under the influence, and there's something in this story that isn't rare, but the nature of it is, and she thinks you're going to want to read about it. And a sold-out crowd was on hand Saturday at the Public Library Celebration of Life, long learning, and a whole story there. If you can't wait like me, go to homernews.com throughout the week. homernews.com. It's been completely revamped, and if there's something going on, you'll find it on the Homer News. Please help me welcome the chairman of the Alaska Libertarian Party, Mr. Mark Fish. Mark, welcome to Radio Realty.
Well, thank you, Chris. I'm pleased to be here.
Hey, Mark, for me, if you had, in a nutshell, maybe give me a 30-second capsule of a libertarian is someone who believes what? And you fill in the blank.
Well, a libertarian is somebody who believes that an individual has a right to their life, liberty, and property. And that being a right is something that is inherent and natural, and no form of government has the authority to take that right away.
Excellent.
That's pretty much a nutshell. There's other aspects in it: free trade, open commerce, transparency in government, and a lot of other policy issues that are based on the rights of the individual.
All right, you're singing the song that I love to hear. If I could sing, I'd be singing it with you, but you don't want to hear that. Well, tell me a little bit about Agenda 21. We've been exploring it on this program, Radio Realty, and our sister program, Alaska Matters, as it pertains to a couple of ordinances and several laws and initiatives here in my backyard of Homer, but an overarching anadromous streams ordinance that affects the entire Kenai Peninsula. So if you would, help educate me again, give me a synopsis of Agenda 21 from where you sit.
Sure. Well, basically, any opposition to Agenda 21, you're painted as some kind of conspiracy theorist.
A nut job, right?
Sure. And one thing that I tell people is it's not a conspiracy. It's not a theory. It is what it says it is. It's an agenda for the 21st century that was created by the UN. So, in essence, it's a plan. And for the last 20 years, they've been going about implementing this plan. Now, it's interesting enough that you say, well, I'd like to see the plan. They pulled Agenda 21, the plan itself, off of the UN website. But fortunately, we've captured it, and at alaskalibertarian.com, on our news tab, you can go down to the bottom and look at the actual document for yourself. Now, they've realized, and they've made statements in the past, the facilitators of this plan, that if the public ever gets wind of what we're doing, we'll never be able to sell it. So the current manifestation, they've gotten away from calling it Agenda 21, and they've relabeled it just this year down in Rio Plus 20 in Rio de Janeiro, and now they're calling it Future Earth. So look for that term to come up in the horizon. But it's essentially the same plan. It's Agenda 21, and what it is, it's trying to manage the Earth's population from a central organizing structure.
In using witting or unwittingly aware local management and local politicians at a very local level.
You know, many of the good people, and they're good people, and they hardly believe in what they're doing, don't realize that they're implementing, something that is going to be contrary to their best interest. Right. You know, they fill it with flowery language, and they send facilitators. You know, they won't work through government because the U.S. Senate rejects it. Most elected officials look at this and balk. So what they do is they go down to the local level, the community councils, and they send ideas and facilitators through grants. They talk to community councils. They build consensus in the community. Now, their idea of consensus is we have an idea that we're going to sell to the public, and we're going to keep selling it until the public agrees with us. I was a president of the Airport Heights Community Council, and I've seen this in one of their aspects called traffic calming. They'll have a meeting, say, we want to do this, and they'll get 100 people in there, have a great deal of opposition, and they say, well, we need another meeting. And they'll continue to have meetings until fewer people show up, and the last ones that do are still in favor of their plan. And so they'll say the meetings have been a success, the community accepts our plan, and move on, decrying that they have community consensus.
That is exactly what I've witnessed with my own two eyes. In fact, it was the comprehensive plan here for the city of Homer. There was a large group of us that met, a lot of business leaders and people within the community. After two meetings, I just couldn't participate anymore. And in fact, I asked the then planner, it's no longer the same planner, but that particular planner, I asked her to please remove my name from this list. I don't want to be copied on emails anymore. I don't want my name associated with this document that you're going to be producing. And this is about 6 years ago. And the reason that I threw in the towel was it just wasn't logical. It wasn't making sense. It seemed to be running counterintuitive to private property rights. It wasn't business friendly. It wasn't growth or development friendly. It was very much an agenda, a hidden agenda that I didn't understand at the time or connect dots to. And I've since tried to make atonement and apologize to the community for that. But more with Mark Fish here in just a little bit. Find out exactly what in Alaska you should be watching out for on Agenda 21 here on Radio Realty. You're listening to Radio Realty. I'm Christopher Story, along with Dave Becker, engineering and producing this program back up at the mothership of KPEN 102 FM, the greatest country music on earth. With me on the line is Mr. Mark Fish. He is the chairman of the Alaska Libertarian Party. We're talking about Agenda 21, the United Nations plan to usurp your private property rights, ergo your human rights. And that is one of the planks of the Libertarian Party, is that these are inherent rights, and they're not something that are given to you by the government of the United States or the United Nations, but are guaranteed by the United States Constitution. And that would be the Fifth Amendment, protecting your private property rights. It's called due process and just compensation. It's real language, and this is a real conspiracy in the works, or a real plan, I guess is a better way to put it, or as they put it in Rio de Janeiro in 1992, an Agenda 21, now entitled future Earth. Mark, why should Alaskans care about this? What evidence have you seen or witnessed that would cause you real concern that Alaska is experiencing Agenda 21?
Well, I've seen it on a lot of different levels. I'm also, I serve on a Citizens Advisory Commission on federal areas for the state as well. And I see with dealing with federal regulators, I see its implementation there. Coastal zone management is part of that same type of stuff that you're dealing with in Homer on the local level.
And the coastal zone management, there was
every level of government that's intruding through the bureaucracies, not the elected officials. And the way they get elected officials is offering some nonprofit grant money that will facilitate some special project that official deems good for the community. But it always comes at the expense of the private property owner.
Right. Well, and that's the thing so you mentioned coastal zone management, and that was very popular with a large group of people that are, as you said, well-intentioned, and for some reason felt so strongly about it. A whole contingent of people actually got naked and did a whole nude photo shoot to support that. And I'm not sure exactly what that was about, but nevertheless, I mean, there's these issues that sound too good to oppose. And if you oppose them, then you don't care about salmon, you don't care about streams and fresh water, and you don't care about the environment and swamps, and you just want to pave it and paint it green. And the reality is, Mark, we need help to combat these kinds of hostile takeovers of private property, and under the auspices of this is something that you need to support, or we're going to paint you as a hater or somebody who is anti-environment, anti-salmon. What advice do you give? Because, like you said, it's not always through the elected officials either.
Yes, well, and one of the things I would point out to anybody that thinks, that private property owners are more destructive than government officials. So look at the EPA's top 10 Superfund sites. Government is a larger destroyer of the environment than any singular entity, private property owner could be.
And I love the Coast Guard, and any coastmen or coastwomen listening, we love you. You're a friend of this program, absolutely. But, Mark, to your point, it was the Coast Guard, the United States Coast Guard, that had a policy where they dumped batteries into the ocean, batteries upon batteries, and were making these massive reefs out of batteries. I mean, it was, and then ended up having to go and reclaim and take them out. And I mean, there's instance after instance where you're absolutely right that it is not necessarily the private individual, but the government entity that's doing more harm than good. For example, the Anadromous Streams Ordinance 2011-12, which a growing group of people are calling for repeal of, is happening right now. It's been passed without the private property owners even being aware that this was being discussed. No written notification, no invitation to the table. And so that is underway, usurping 50 feet of their private property. At the same time, the United States government is dumping a known chemical called retinol into the lakes and streams that will eventually hit the Kenai River, a very, very valuable river system. And we're okay with this because, well, the government knows what they're doing. And by the way, if there's too much retinol that ends up in the Kenai, don't worry. We have another chemical we can dump in to neutralize it. And they're worried about the private property owner maintaining his riverbank by cutting a tree down before it falls in.
Yes, I would also like to point out that if you look at the map of land use in Alaska, less than 0.6% are in the hands of private property ownership. So even if you had every single private property owner in the state decimate his land, the impact on salmon would be insignificant. Now, that's not saying they do that. I don't know of any Alaskan that doesn't love salmon.
Agreed.
Or doesn't want salmon passing through their property.
Right.
It's an added value. It's an asset. So I think that the process of education, rather than imposing will on somebody, is much more beneficial to both the management of the species and the property owner themselves.
Yeah.
Also, if a private property owner happens to endanger a commonly held resource, we do have avenues for that in the court systems for compensation.
Yeah.
No one can go into the commons and destroy commonly held property without being held accountable through our legal system. So the idea of this management is basically just what they're trying to implement is control over the population.
Yes, absolutely. It's behavior modification through usurpation of your rights. I mean, I can't think of a more prime example than Homer, Alaska, having a climate action plan and justification for making a purchase. A city manager purchased for himself and for the council and his staff iPads to the tune of $15,000. And you think, okay, well, whatever. Maybe we need to move into the 21st century and all have these little mobile computer devices and so forth. Now, never mind that the city attorney offered a free solution to that. We'll take that out of the equation for a moment and just go, what else motivated that purchase? Well, it happened to fit in line with the climate action plan for the community of Homer, and you start to see this whole agenda weaving its way through the budgeting process and all of a sudden I'm looking at this going, the global fingerprints are on places in my community that they do not belong. Mark, is there a chance that somebody, a council member, a couple of council members could go into a local community with a different mindset and say, we're going to reverse some of this stuff and maybe even help us remove these types of ordinances that are in existence and maybe disavow ourselves of ICLEI, which, tell me again, do you know ICLEI is the International Council of
Local Environmental Initiatives.
Thank you. Okay, so all that said, do you offer some hope for our small communities?
Well, absolutely. You know, it doesn't take a large population to influence these policies, and they know that. You know, if you go down to your local assembly or council meeting and sit in during public testimony on virtually any subject, you can see that most people that go there are advocates of a certain policy they want. No one ever gets up to say, no, we don't want this, stop it. And if you can organize, even in Homer, if you can organize a dozen people to testify on a pro-property issue or frankly, an anti-property issue, it has significant impact on your elected officials. Now, this is why they don't want to deal with elected officials, because they are movable.
Right.
You know, so I encourage people to work on educating their elected officials and let them know what your positions are. And we've had some successes in South Central doing that. You should see the shocked look on the face when people stand up and testify, no, we don't want this grant money. You could see the color leave all those elected representatives' face. They've never heard something like that before.
Right, right.
So local involvement is where they are implementing their plans, and local involvement is where we can prevent those plans from degrading our rights any further.
Mark Fish, chairman of the Alaska Libertarian Party. Would you please give us your website one more time where people can go and click on the link and read for themselves Agenda 21?
Sure. It's alaskalibertarian.com, and it'll take you to our front page. And we have a news link there that has a drop-down to property rights. And not only Agenda 21 is listed on there, but we do propose a piece of legislation at the state level that will prevent local officials from implementing policies contrary to the rights of the property owner.
It's worth reading, folks. It really is. It really, really is. And Mark, thank you so much for your time today, and please continue to keep us in your Rolodex, and I can't wait for our next conversation.
Anytime, Chris. I appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, don't you go anywhere. We've got a whole lot more to wrap up in just a few minutes. What remain here on the greatest show on earth, Radio Realty. Oh, that's an anthem to live by. I hope you're as fed up as I am. Are you? I mean, does this bother you to see just fly in the face ordinances against private property rights? You know, and we down here in Homer are fighting this plastic bag ban. And it isn't that I love and am enamored with plastic bags. No, that's not it. I'm enamored with freedom and liberty and freedom to choose in pursuit of happiness. And you stay out of my business. Don't you try to micromanage my business, and I won't micromanage yours. You know, if you really want to address issues head on, you have to apply critical thinking. I mean, you just have to apply critical thinking. Okay, hey, I want to thank, again, Ralph was our big winner. And no, he did not use Google. Ralph knew the answer, and that's fine. There's no problem, but he didn't know. He knew the answer to the Mermaid Trivia Contest, that it was hazardous chemicals being stored. So he'll be going down there for free. And I want to thank Kay. She's our random winner on the 7 out of 10 National Association of Realtors would prefer central air, according to those buyers. Well, you would also, all of you, nobody replied differently. Everybody wants central heat in their house and would be willing to pay more for it. Yep, willing to pay a little bit more. By the way, my daughter Zoe texted in and said that she hates our heating system, which is not central. And she also said that all of her friends hate it, which I thought was a revelation that didn't need to be shared, Zoe. It just hurts. It just hurts. Maybe with natural gas we'll do something different. I don't know. RadioRealty.us. RadioRealty.us is the home of this radio program when we're not here on KPEN. And be sure to tune in next Tuesday. I have a special guest. She's an author. She's written 3 books on the subject of, you guessed it, Agenda 21. That's right. She's written 3 books, and I've asked her to look at the Homer Comprehensive Plan, the Homer Climate Action Plan, and the Anadromous Streams Ordinance in the borough. So don't go anywhere. Next week we'll be back with more here on Radio Realty.